Hi, and welcome back to Animals 2 by 2, where we take a week-long study at different animals. Remember, this week we're looking at snails, and this is day 4 of our week-long lesson. And by the end of the week, just like every week, I really want you to be able to learn some things and know some standards. So at the end of this week or tomorrow, you should be able to observe the structure and behavior of land snails in a terrarium, observe the structures and behavior of water snails in an aquarium, communicate your own observations of the two kinds of snails. Compare the similarities and differences of those two kinds of snails. Make observations of the natural world and know that those are descriptors collected using your five senses. Use the five senses as tools and make careful observations, describing objects in terms of number, shape, texture, size, weight, color, motion, and compare your observations with others. Even if you only have friends or family members around you, you can always converse and compare them with each other. Also, you should be able to raise questions about the natural world. Use appropriate reference material that support your understanding and to obtain information. Identify your source. Okay, so what you'll need, just the book handouts that you should have received on Monday. Today we're going to be looking at that page 15 where we're comparing the land snails and water snails. Just some paper, pencils, crayons, markers, just anything that's easy for you to write notes, make drawings on. And then we've already looked at our book, Animals Do. Okay, some vocabulary or words to know. We began talking about water snails, and we also talked about those are known also as aquatic snails. Well, we have some freshwater aquatic snails, which are hardy creatures that thrive in the same water parameters as most aquarium fish, making them easy to keep and compatible with a wide variety of fish and invertebrate species. So that's going to be your most easily kept as a classroom pet. If you have your fish tank, you can add freshwater aquatic snails in there as well, so that students and friends and family can really observe them in a more natural habitat. Then we have our land snails, which we've talked about is a snail. It's that's its common name for a kind of mollusk. The term's used for a gastropod, which it has a coiled shell. Then we went over a couple more, but a lot of that's really like the mollusk, which are invertebrate, meaning they do not have any backbone. They have a soft body that holds the heart, liver, digestive system, and other important organs. And gastropods. Those are any of the large class of gastropoda or mollusks such as a snail and slug, usually with an univalve shell or none, and a distinct head bearing sensory organs. Okay, so investigation, land and water snails. That's what we've been looking at all week. We're really looking into what's happening with each one individually, and then we're going to compare them together. So what's really going on together and what makes them different. So as we go through, feel free to write notes, draw pictures, anything that you can kind of refer back to. The aquatic snail. Just a little review. We started on them yesterday and we gave some pretty important information on that. So we're going to look at the aquatic snail. The sea snail, which is a type of aquatic snail, you have your saltwater and your freshwater, are a very large group of animals and a very diverse one. Most snails that live in saltwater respire, that means breathe, using a gill or gills. A few species, though, have a lung that are intertidal. So it's only active at like low tide when they can move around in the air. Okay. The aquatic snail also have tentacles, brain, heart, and just are just some of the body parts that snails, soft-bodied gastropod mollusks that have an attractive, rigid outer shell are made mostly of. And their outer shell is typically made out of calcium carbonate, and it's really essential for their protection and their survival. So without the shell, the snails would not prosper as much as. Look at this now. And this is just a horse conch, which is a type of mollusk. Um, and this would be more of a saltwater seashell one. So you can see the mantle, and we saw that in the land snail as well, and it's that outer edge, the foot, and that's the part that comes up and just protects that opening. Um, we've seen these quite a bit. If you have grown up in this area of Florida, we are close to the ocean, and we do see these type more than most people do. So this should be something that you're pretty familiar with. Okay, so this is a crazy looking one, but this is another snail. They all look different. There are so many kinds of snails and diverse um, groups of them, but you have some telltale signs. So signs of a healthy invertebrate. They have active movement, a healthy appetite, even coloring, a clean appearance. When you have them in your aquarium or you're using them in a classroom or at home, you need to avoid overcrowding conditions. They are a major cause of stress and disease. Maintain good water quality with regular water changes and adequate filtration. So when you're caring for these snails, it's really important that you don't have too many in one container. Make sure that you're keeping them not isolated from each other, but with enough room to grow and we could say play, but move around. Some red flags. If you see this in your snails, this is where you're going to be a little concerned. Some red flags are loss of color or appetite, spots or fungus on its body or mouth, listlessness, and it retreats into its shell most of the time. It is common for them to retreat into their shell, but not to stay there the majority of the time. So be looking out for things like that. Make sure that you're keeping your snails happy and safe. Always remember that if you have them in an aquarium or a terrarium, aquarium for sea snails and a terrarium for land snails, make sure that those lids are on super tight because once again, snails can escape very easily. Okay, so go ahead and find your page 15 from your handouts, and it should say, how are land and water snails different, and how are they the same? So what you do is you can either pause the video now and begin to work on it, or you can wait and at the end of the video today, you can work on it and bring it back with us tomorrow. Because once you've completed it, when we come back tomorrow, we're going to go over it and describe it and look and see if your notes are the same as my notes and what are those key points that you saw. What were the big differences between the two types of snails, and what were the things that they were most alike. Once again, write me a few sentences on it or write me a really good sentence. Draw me a picture, take your time. We are not artists here, we are scientists, and we just want to really compare those and dive deep into what the differences and the likenesses are of those animals. Okay, and stay tuned. I hope you guys come back tomorrow for lesson 5 where we'll recap all that we've learned about snails and compare the two types and look at some shells actually. Thanks so much.